what I learned about myself is no matter what my name is or what people call me, I'm still the same person. So that didn't change who I am. And maybe that's probably the biggest distinguishing factor.
After years of mystery and silence, Meghan Markle's first husband, Joe Giuliano, has finally come forward, and what he's revealed has left everyone stunned. Long before her royal romance and global fame, Meghan's past held secrets that few ever knew, including the shocking reason Joe's family rejected her. His emotional confession paints a raw and revealing picture of Meghan's early ambitions, hidden struggles, and the tension that tore their relationship apart. What really happened between them and what secrets from that relationship still haunt her today? Today, we uncover Joe Giuliano's explosive truth about Meghan. The secret marriage Meghan never spoke about. Before the palaces, before the titles, before Meghan Markle became a household name, there was another story, one far quieter, far more secret, and long buried beneath years of silence. It was the story of a young woman chasing dreams, and the man who loved her before the world even knew her name. Long before she became the Duchess of Sussex, Meghan was simply Meghan, ambitious, charming, and determined to make her mark. And in that forgotten chapter of her life stood Joe Giuliano, an ordinary man from Chicago. He wasn't wealthy, powerful, or connected, but for a time he was the one person who held her heart before the cameras and crowns ever did. At first, their romance looked genuine, sweet even. They were always together, full of plans and laughter. Friends remember them as inseparable, but beneath that perfect picture, something felt off. Meghan's stories didn't always add up. Dates changed, details blurred. What seemed like simple mistakes began to look like careful rewrites. Joe's mother noticed first. Her instincts told her something wasn't right. Meghan spoke about finishing school in 1994, yet public records suggested otherwise. It might have seemed like nothing, until more contradictions followed. Quietly, the Giuliano family began to wonder if the woman who had entered their lives was not who she claimed to be. Rumors soon spread that Meghan may have been older than she said, possibly born in the late 1970s, not 1981. If true, it meant she had hidden more than just her age. She had rewritten her story. Their whirlwind romance ended as suddenly as it began. The two reportedly married in a private Las Vegas ceremony. No witnesses, no photographs, no official trace. Within months, it was over. Divorce papers were sealed, records vanished, and the Giulianos went silent. But silence doesn't erase truth. It only buries it. Years later, as Meghan rose to fame, the whispers returned. People began asking the same haunting questions. Why was the marriage hidden? What did Joe's family know? And what really happened between Meghan Markle and the man the world was never supposed to remember? The untold story of Meghan and the Giulianos. There was something magnetic about her, a glow that drew people in before she ever said a word. Meghan Markle had that rare charm that made you want to believe everything she said. She laughed easily, spoke confidently, and carried herself like someone destined for more. But those who looked a little closer, especially the Giuliano family, began to sense something different behind the perfect smile. Something practiced. Something intentional. The Giulianos were a proud Italian-American family from the heart of Chicago. Hardworking, traditional, and deeply private, they valued loyalty and reputation above everything else. Sundays were sacred, filled with pasta, stories, and prayer at Nonna's table. Family arguments stayed within the walls of the home. To them, respect wasn't earned through fame or money. It came from humility and devotion. So when their son, Joe Giuliano, brought home a bright, ambitious young woman named Meghan, they welcomed her warmly. She was polite, confident, and spoke with a spark that was impossible to ignore. She told stories about acting auditions in Los Angeles, about scripts she was writing, about one day being seen on television. At first, they admired her drive. It was refreshing, even inspiring, but admiration soon turned into quiet unease. Something about Meghan felt rehearsed. Every gesture was graceful, every word carefully chosen. One relative would later describe her as too smooth to be real. She could look you straight in the eye and make you feel like the only person in the room. But when she walked away, you were left wondering if any of it had been genuine. The deeper she stepped into her Hollywood dreams, the further she drifted from Joe's family. Sunday dinners turned into polite excuses. Missed birthdays became routine. Calls went unanswered, with Joe softly explaining, "She's just busy. This next role could change everything." But the Giulianos didn't measure life in scripts and spotlights. They measured it in presence, showing up, keeping your word, honoring your roots. And slowly, they realized Meghan's world was built on motion, ambition, and reinvention, even if it meant leaving love behind. What did Joe's family see that made them turn away for good? And why did Meghan work so hard to erase that chapter of her life? The dream that tore the family apart. The Giuliano family didn't worry because Meghan was ambitious. They worried because her dream seemed too big to include their son. She didn't want roots. One family friend later whispered, she wanted wings. Joe's father, a man of deep faith and old-fashioned values, tried to reach her heart one evening over dinner. He spoke gently but firmly, saying, "Marriage isn't built on red carpets or applause. It's built on quiet mornings, shared burdens, and trust." But Meghan saw life through a different lens. To her, love was just one chapter in a much bigger story she was writing. A story where she would be seen, remembered, and celebrated far beyond Chicago's quiet streets. Her eyes were always set on something higher: the next audition, the next opportunity, the next version of herself. And though she smiled at Joe's family, her thoughts were already elsewhere. She didn't mean to hurt them, but her world moved fast, and theirs didn't. Slowly, the warmth in the Giuliano home began to fade. Conversations grew shorter. Dinners turned into polite exchanges. The closeness they once felt was replaced with quiet distance. Meghan had become, in their eyes, not a daughter-in-law, but a guest, one passing through on her way to something greater. And then she was gone. Just like that. No dramatic fight, no tearful goodbye, just absence. Years later, when Meghan Markle's name flashed across global headlines,
the Duchess of Sussex also revealed that she was always told to stay silent.
Not as Joe Giuliano's former love, but as the Duchess of Sussex, those who remembered her early days in Chicago couldn't help but exchange knowing glances. Some said they'd always seen it coming. Others admitted they never truly knew her at all. To the Giulianos, it was never about fame or fortune. It was about trust. They had welcomed a woman into their home, believing she'd build a future with their son. But instead, she built something far bigger and far away. They rarely speak of her now, not out of anger, but quiet heartbreak. Because sometimes the hardest truth isn't that someone changes. It's realizing they were never who you thought they were. But what really happened in that Chicago home before the world met Meghan Markle? Let's uncover the truth behind the silence. The secret they buried. For years, quiet whispers drifted through the old neighborhoods of Chicago. They weren't the kind of rumors shouted across tabloids. They lived in hushed tones, exchanged between neighbors over fences, or shared in late-night phone calls. Stories of a secret that never made the headlines, but never truly disappeared either. Long before the royal spotlight found her, Meghan Markle lived another life. One that began not with palaces or paparazzi, but in the modest home of the Giuliano family. Somewhere between Meghan's growing ambition and the Giulianos' deeply rooted traditions. A chapter unfolded that few were ever meant to know about. A love that began with warmth but ended in silence. By the mid-1990s, Meghan was already shaping herself into someone larger than life, confident, driven, and unwilling to be ordinary. Joe Giuliano came from the opposite world, a traditional Chicago family that believed in loyalty, faith, and the sacredness of keeping private matters private. When the two eloped to Las Vegas, their small, joyful ceremony seemed like the start of forever. But forever didn't last long. As the excitement faded, cracks began to show, Meghan's hunger for independence clashed with the Giulianos' insistence on family unity. She wanted movement, reinvention, freedom, while they wanted roots. Then came the rumors, whispers that Meghan might be expecting. And suddenly, that once warm home turned cold. There was no fight, no spectacle, just one heavy, quiet decision made around a dining table where no one dared to speak above a whisper. The Giulianos chose silence. They would protect their name and privacy at all costs. Meghan, they said, could go after her dreams, but only if she left that part of her life behind. By the summer of 1995, those whispers turned into something more. Talk of a baby girl born quietly and kept even quieter. Neighbors remembered glimpses of a child at family gatherings, introduced vaguely as a relative's daughter, then never mentioned again. No birth record, no announcement, no trace. It was as if the story had been erased before it even began. But what was the truth behind that silence? And why did everyone work so hard to keep it buried? The vanishing of the Giulianos. Joe stayed close for a while, quietly checking in, hoping that maybe things could be different. But Meghan was already walking a new path: Northwestern University, auditions, small acting roles. Her future was unfolding exactly as she had always dreamed.
Meghan Markle, being an alumna of the university, it has made my job a little bit busier.
To her, it felt like growth, progress. To the Giulianos, it felt like loss. They believed they had given her everything: love, family, belonging. And in their eyes, she had traded it all for ambition. She didn't just leave him, one of Joe's friends once said softly. She left everything that made her one of us. When the marriage ended, it didn't explode into scandal. It simply disappeared. No tabloids, no bitter fights, no divorce drama. Just a quiet annulment, processed behind closed doors and sealed for good. Those close to the family said there was one rule: silence. Meghan would walk away with a spotless record, and the Giulianos would keep their dignity. Whether money ever exchanged hands, no one really knows. Some said there was a private agreement. Others said it was about something deeper, protecting the family's name. Whatever the truth, one thing became clear: every trace of their story was wiped away before anyone could tell it. Still, silence has a way of echoing. Behind the Giulianos' front door, the pain never faded. The nursery was left untouched. Joe's mother kept the baby blanket folded in a drawer that was never opened again. And the question, why, lingered like a ghost for years. To the outside world, Meghan Markle appeared to be the woman who built herself from nothing, polished, graceful, unstoppable. But to those who remembered the Giulianos, she was someone who had everything and quietly walked away before anyone could see what she left behind. Then, one day, the Giulianos themselves vanished. No goodbyes, no forwarding address, just an early morning moving truck, and by noon, their home stood empty. Curtains fluttered in the open air, lemon polish still lingering where laughter once lived. But what could drive an entire family to erase themselves? And what secret were they trying to bury before the world found out? The mystery of Luchia. Months after the Giulianos vanished, an unexpected package arrived on a quiet Chicago street. It was a small brown parcel, worn at the corners, with no return address. The only clue was a faint postmark from a remote coastal town in southern Italy, a place few in the neighborhood had ever heard of. The parcel was addressed to Clara, the elderly woman who had once lived across from the Giulianos. Inside, wrapped in a faded handkerchief, was a delicate silver bracelet. It looked old, beautifully handcrafted, almost antique, the kind of keepsake a mother might pass to her daughter on a birthday or wedding day. Etched into its surface was a single name, Luchia. But no one in the Giuliano family, not Joe, not Anna, not their few visiting relatives from New Jersey, had ever mentioned anyone by that name. To Clara, it was a name that came from nowhere, like a whisper from a life carefully hidden. Troubled, she took the bracelet to her parish priest, hoping he might recognize it. But the moment he saw it, his expression shifted. He grew pale, uneasy. Without hesitation, he whispered, "Burn it. Don't ask questions, and never speak of it again. Of course, that only deepened the mystery. Soon, quiet conversations began to ripple through Chicago's tight-knit Italian community. Some whispered that the Giulianos had fled to Calabria, living under new names. Others swore they'd been seen in Montreal months later. But beneath all the rumors was one theory people couldn't shake, one that tied everything back to Meghan Markle. The theory claimed that the child named Luchia wasn't Joe's at all. She was Meghan's. At first, it sounded outrageous, until people noticed something strange. Meghan's college records showed a missing semester at Northwestern, one that had quietly vanished from every transcript. Coincidence? Or something carefully buried? What happened during Meghan's missing semester? Who sent the bracelet? And could Luchia be the secret that forced an entire family to disappear? The family that vanished without a trace. Some stories never truly end, they just fade, slowly, like ink, dissolving in rain. The story of the Giuliano family is one of those. Their old Chicago home, once alive with laughter, Sunday dinners, and the comforting smell of garlic and basil, now sits empty and still. The paint peels from its shutters, the windows collect dust, and the rusty mailbox still carries their name, barely visible, like a memory refusing to die. Neighbors remember the day they left. A moving van arrived before sunrise, and by noon, the family was gone. No goodbyes, no explanations, not even a forwarding address. To outsiders, it looked like a routine move, but to those who knew them best, the ones who waved to Joe on his morning jogs or saw Anna trimming her roses, something about it felt off, too quiet, too careful, almost like they were rehearsing their disappearance. Soon, their phone numbers stopped working. Letters went unanswered. The usual Christmas cards never came. Within weeks, it was as if the Giulianos had chosen to erase themselves from the world. Whispers began to fill the silence. Some said financial trouble drove them out. Others believed there was a secret, something too heavy to face. Whatever it was, the truth stayed hidden, until faint traces began to reappear across the ocean. A Milan bank account abruptly closed. A property deed surfaced in Sicily under an unfamiliar name. Then, locals in a small seaside village near Palermo spoke of a quiet American couple who arrived with a young girl. The woman called herself Anna Luchia, graceful but guarded. The man, Joseph, polite yet always watching, like someone expecting to be found. They paid only in cash. The child never attended school. And once, when a villager tried to take a photo during a festival, Joseph pulled his daughter close and murmured softly, "No photographs, please." But what were they hiding from? And who were they afraid might still be looking? The secret Meghan could never outrun. Years later, long before the royal headlines, before the palace and the press, curious journalists began tracing the unpolished edges of Meghan Markle's early life. What they found wasn't just a story. It was an absence. Entire months missing from public records. Sealed documents that refused to open. And then, a single photograph that reignited everything. It was said to have been taken near Lake Como in the late 1990s. In it, Meghan walks alone along a narrow lakeside path, her face half turned toward the water, her expression unreadable. But just behind her, blurred by distance, stands a man holding a little girl's hand. His face is obscured, but his build, his posture, something about him stirred a strange familiarity among those who had followed the old Giuliano rumors. Who was he? And more importantly, who was the child? Not long after the photo surfaced online, it vanished again, quietly erased from public archives. Even reverse image searches led to dead ends. Those who had downloaded it claimed the file became corrupted, as if something or someone didn't want it seen again. As reporters dug deeper, the pieces only grew stranger. Some believed the Giulianos had known Meghan long before she became famous, that their disappearance and her missing timeline were not coincidence, but consequence. Others whispered of blood ties quietly erased, of a secret kept not out of shame, but necessity. Whatever truth lay beneath those years, the Giuliano's silence became their armor, and silence in their world was protection. Today, their old Chicago house still stands, untouched, sagging under time's weight, its windows dark, Locals say that on certain quiet nights, the air feels charged there. A floorboard creaks, a faint sound of footsteps drifts down the hall, and thousands of miles away, in a sleepy Italian village by the sea, the name Guiliano still lingers. Spoken rarely, whispered carefully, like a ghost that refuses to rest. Maybe the Giulianos didn't disappear to hide from the world. Maybe they disappeared to protect something or someone the world was never meant to find. But what exactly was Meghan Markle trying to leave behind?
Harry and Meghan, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, have been outspoken advocates for mental health awareness and education for quite a while.
Keep watching to find out. The forgotten ties of Meghan Markle. Decades have passed, yet the whispers still linger. Somewhere between royal luxury and ordinary life lies a story that refuses to stay buried. A story wrapped in silence and guarded by those loyal to a name the world has almost forgotten. Guiliano. Long before Meghan Markle became the Duchess of Sussex, another name seemed to follow her shadow. It appeared quietly in sealed records, scattered archives, and documents that should have never met public eyes. In early 2024, a freelance journalist named Aaron Vale stumbled upon a set of dusty files in a small Roman archive while researching a missing inheritance case. What began as routine work turned into something extraordinary. He found pages with blurred dates, missing lines, and one signature that kept appearing: a Guiliano. Aaron's curiosity turned to obsession. He began tracing old immigration papers, baptism records, and expired passports that pointed to a quiet family once living near Palermo. Locals still remembered them: Joseph and Anna Luchia Guiliano, a polite couple who vanished suddenly in the late 1990s, leaving behind only an empty villa and unanswered questions. Then came the moment that changed everything. One spring evening, Aaron received an email with no subject, no message, and no sender. Attached was a single grainy photograph taken on a sunny Italian street. A woman in a scarf stood beside a flower stall, her face turned slightly away. Next to her, a young woman smiled shyly. Her resemblance to Meghan Markle was chilling. The photo's data showed it was taken in 2015, 2 years before Meghan's royal engagement. Every attempt Aaron made to follow the lead was met with silence. Records disappeared overnight. Officials suddenly refused to talk, but in Milan, a notary confirmed a sealed trust linked to a mysterious Joe Giuliano. Around the same time, a British outlet briefly reported a secret royal trip to Italy.
You know, I know that the majority of British people are much better than that.
Before retracting the story hours later. And then there was the rumor of a woman applying for dual citizenship, listing her birthplace as Los Angeles and her father's surname as Guiliano. Coincidence or connection? Perhaps the Giulianos never truly vanished. Perhaps they were erased for a reason the world was never meant to uncover. But what do you think truly happened between Meghan and the Giuliano family that caused their fallout? Share your thoughts below, hit subscribe, and stay tuned for more untold royal secrets and shocking revelations.